Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is Go Again, a fabulous video cast covering the trading card game Flesh and Blood. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando. Hey folks, welcome to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. Tonight I am here with Josh the Intern. We are continuing our budget deck series because I'm not a Bravo player, but he is. So he's here to run us through the budget deck series, Bravo Hammer. All right, folks, welcome back. And Josh, thanks for joining us today. So can you kind of give us just a brief overview of this, basically the strategy behind your particular deck, and then we'll go through the cards and talk strategy and get out of here.
Sure, sounds good. The way I designed this budget deck was to give you a lot of versatility, where in certain matchups you're going to want to go Anathos, and other matchups you're going to want to go Sledge, because I think the opportunity exists for you to be using the Sledge. And the main goal of this deck is to be versatile. If you have the opportunity to dominate one of your big dominate cards, go for it. If not, there's absolutely nothing wrong with pitching and swinging the hammer for 4 or 6, depending on which version you're using, and going about your business. So that's what I like about Bravo in this particular regard, is the versatility. You have some pretty beefy block cards. You can swing, you can play your action cards, you can kind of just go with the flow of how the game is going.
All right, great. So before we get into the list itself, just want to remind everyone that the idea behind the budget series is that its rares are lower, right? So that's what we're looking at. So we're not looking at crippling and all the big sexy stuff for Bravo. We're looking at just utility plays. So let's go ahead and just can you run down the weapons and equipment first, and then we'll kind of blow through the deck?
Sure. For the equipment, the first is you have the full suite of Nullrune if you come against the wizard. For the weapons, I left in the choice of Anathos or Sledge, and I think you'll make those decisions based off of who you're playing. If you're playing a deck you expect will be going wide, you probably go with Anathos, so you can swing with just one card. If you're going against kind of a mid-range, you might be able to use Sledge instead. Goliath Gauntlet is there mainly to enhance one of your dominate turns. For the chess piece, I went with Heartened Crosstrap because it gives you a 2 discount on an action card, which means either you get a discount on a card where your hands is limited, or it gives you a free access to dominate because you're discounting your attack by 2 resources. For the helmet, I went with the Helm of Eisen's Peak. That's good for a turn where you've had a block heavy and you pitch to give yourself an extra card at the end of turn and gain some card advantage. And then for legs, I went with just the normal Iron Rot legs. There's not a whole lot of opportunities to use Snapdragon Scalers or Mage Master boots. So Iron Rot legs, it just blocks for 1, pretty standard to play there. There is one more slot that's not used. Out of the 11, I've only used 10, so there's some flexibility if you want to slot something like that, and you see an opportunity to use something else, it's there for you. And of course, the full Nullrune set.
Sure.
Closing that up.
All right, well, run us down the cards here real quick, and then we can go and talk some basic strategy, please.
All right, so for the defense reactions, we got the Red Fate, the Red Sync, and the Blue Unmovable. I think those are all pretty standard in a lot of your budget decks, or even a lot of your main decks, probably. For the non-attack action cards, we have Blue Slogism, Blue Stonewall, and Blue Towering. And for the defense reactions, I've got just the full set of pummels.
The attack reacts.
Yeah, the attack reacts, pummel. I actually did miss Blessing of Deliverance up there. It's red. That's a good utility card. We'll talk about how the strategy of that works when we get into detail. And then for the attacks, we have mostly blues, because I think in a lot of decks, regardless of whether you have rares, majestics, or what, most of what you're going to be running is blue cards. For the reds, I went with Crush Confidence, Crush the Weak, and Disable, because I think they were the best bang for your buck for the budget cards as far as their crush abilities and how effective they can be.
Okay, and then you're filling all out with blues of those: Buckling Blow, Cartilage Crush, Choke Slam, and Slog. Oh, I think you already mentioned Slog. Oh, Debilitate. That is the one we were missing, Debilitate. Great. So let me ask you, so I'm going to be asking some questions just for strategy to Josh. It doesn't mean I don't know the answers, folks. Just stick with me here, right? So let's say I pitch Anathos for 3, and I have 1 3-cost card in my discard, and then I pummel. Does Anathos get that boost? Does it go from 4 to 6, or does it stay at 4?
It does.
Yeah, it does.
It does, because at the time the attack resolves, it checks the status of the discard, and if it hits that qualifier, then you're good to go.
Right. So that is obviously a key part of this deck to help you, right? It turns your pummel into, right, your red pummel at a +4. You go from a swinging 4 to a swinging 10. Not insignificant. Yeah, so you talked about, walk us through the Blessing of Deliverance play, please.
All right, so Blessing of Deliverance is an awesome card. I tend to run the reds. I've seen people run red and yellow. But the key part of it is it's a 1-cost card. So you're pitching a blue typically to initiate the chain. It has Go Again as the first line item. So you're pitching 1, you have 2 in reserve. And it says if you have pitched, or there's a 3 resource card in your discard, you get to draw a card. So you immediately get to get the card back that you gave up for Blessing of Deliverance by pitching a 3-cost card, which most of your pitches will be. And then the other key part of it that is in the next round, you'll get to you'll get to peek at your hand, because you'll be looking at your top 3 cards and checking if they have a cost 3 or greater, and if they do, you heal. So it's kind of a double combo, because you get to draw a card. You presumably pitched a 3 to meet the qualification, get to draw that card. And since you have leftover resources, you've only pitched 3, then when you pitch again to swing with Anathos, you'll have your 2 cards in your discard that you need, or in your pitch zone, to pump Anathos to 6.
Yeah, so you mentioned playing yellow. That could be an easy swap people could make if they're not finding some of the other cards, or if they just want to go more heavy into Anathos. That would be a great go. But you'd go yellow, or would you go blue there?
I don't think the blue the problem with the blue, in my opinion, is the ability would still be the same in that you would get to draw the card, but you'd only be checking the top card of your deck to heal 1 later. So I think it has less value, and I think you'd get more out of another blue card that's either an attack or a buff.
Yeah, and just to keep in mind, right, if you pitch it for it's not a 3 drop, so it doesn't trigger. Right.
And that is another part about a lot of how this deck is designed is the thought is, if at worst case scenario you only have 2 cards in hand, there's still a lot you can do with this deck. Mm-hmm. And Blessing of Deliverance, if you have 2 cards, you pitch your first card for 3, play Blessing of Deliverance, it draws you your second card, which odds are is going to be something that costs 3 or is blue, which will allow you to pay to swing Anathos, or even swing Sledge. And that's with the card, or with a hand where you're only starting with 2 cards, where you'd normally be possibly at a disadvantage.
Okay, cool. So I think those 2. I mean, the Blessing of Deliverance one's a little less straightforward, but I think you did a good job kind of talking us through how it leads you to good stuff plus your hammer swing. At what point do you then? I mean, this is a heavy hammer build, no question about it. So at what point do you decide to swing with an attack action instead? Right. Well, at what point do you attack and not hammer up?
A lot of it has to do with probably the matchups that you're going against, and it really tends to be, can I afford it with Dominate? And if so, I would prefer it to swing of the hammer, because it, for the most part, will do more damage or similar damage, but I want to force them to interact with that crush effect. And I think that's kind of most of the time what you're looking for is if you're not going to swing for the straight solid damage, you want to hit that dominate trigger or the crush effect for what it does. And that's why the ones that I've chosen that are red are especially Crush Confidence with the red, deals 7, and if it does 4 or more, they lose all hero effects, which that hurts Ira, that hurts Dorinthea, Rhinar, Bravo. I mean, most classes are affected by that crush to a great deal, which is why I thought that it was important that we had the red versions of that. You have a red Crush Confidence, I think you're going to want to try to play that and dominate it versus swing.
Yeah, seems reasonable. All right, so now the $1 million, or actually the several $100 question, right, is upgrades for the deck. Obviously, I mean, you and I have talked before, and actually I'll put the link up. We actually went through and we did a tier list of where we thought the legendaries were, and Bravo's chest plate was numero uno, right? So is that the first?
Especially with this, with this particular build, the chest piece I think is invaluable because it gives you another way if you are going with Anathos versus Sledge. It gives you a means of getting that second card into your discard by pitching a 3, paying 1 for the ability to create a Seismic Surge token, and then that allowing you to qualify to pitch to then swing forward Anathos. So setting up that trigger where you're almost always, if you are swinging Anathos, ideally you're swinging it for 6 anyways, and that being able to get the Seismic Surge token lends to that strategy to a great benefit.
Sure. So then, I mean, I would think that would have to be your number one purchase. Not that it's a small purchase, to be clear. So now let's go for like the 25 to, well, nothing's $25 in this game, right? But let's go for the next tier. Do you start swapping in the reds for like your crippling crushes and stuff? Is that the next play, or is there something else sexy you do?
I think that's exactly. I think where you're going to want to swap things out is normally you probably wouldn't run a red Crush Confidence without, or a red Crush the Weak, or red Disable. Because there's options that if you had them, you would Spinal Crush would be the first thing I would try to swap out because it's 4 costs, so it's very affordable, and it just has a better effect in that they can't gain Go again, and I believe it hits for 8 or 9, so it's above damage curve for even these other red cards that are similar. So that's probably the first card I would look at. It's probably not as expensive as a Crippling Crush. So I would look at Spinal Crush is swapping out for reds for that. Cranial Crush is another good one because it actually is blue and it hits pretty well for a blue card. So I would swap a red for a blue in that instance. And then, of course, the bigger one is, if you can get a hold of a Spinal Crush, Crippling Crush, that is the primo card for any Bravo build.
Okay, so then if I'm tracking correctly, your recommendations are you swap a Disable for Crush Confidence would go for Crippling because that's your big swing. Your Disable would go for Spinal, and then you'd actually go Cranial would actually take the red Crush the Weaks, which actually increases your cost curve. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay,
correct.
Cool. And then do you have any other recommendations on how to change? I don't know. I really like the fact that you're playing all the red defend reacts. I mean, that all looks pretty healthy to me. Blue unmovable is the right play, 100%. Any other auras or any weird pumps you'd take instead?
Really, I think a lot of the really great cards for Bravo that make it effective are already cards that are rare or below. And then you have cards that, if you could, you would replace, but I don't think it would change your strategy a whole lot. And it would be better numbers wise, but I don't think it would be any less effective even playing this as is. The only other thing I can think of that you might find a place for in a lot of more traditional Bravo builds, Showtime is very big because it lets you tutor one of your big hitters. I don't often include it, or if I do, I'll only include one copy of it because I think it gets you what you want. even in a hammer build, but more often than not, I end up pitching that card because even with the tutor, it costs you your turn. And one of the reasons for this strategy for the hammer build is a lot of the normal Bravo builds will have a turn where they just don't do anything because they're show timing to pull Crippling Crush, and they take the turn off because that's a terminal ability. Whereas with this deck, the way it's designed, other than changing out a few of the really more effective Majestics and higher cards, another card, sorry, to backtrack a little bit, is Mangle. Mangle's yellow, which has a place because it can still get you what you need to afford if you need to pitch it, but its ability to hit pretty hard and affect your opponent's equipment, I think, is pretty awesome. That might be another one you'd want to switch out for one of your reds, just because it does increase your pitch value, but you get a better effect out of it. But otherwise, with this design, the build there shouldn't be any turns off of you. You should be able to put pressure and constant cards up, get some damage in with the hammer build, which is why I prefer it for a budget.
Okay, well, great. I think we hit all the marks. This one looks pretty good. I know that I've lost to your Bravo hammer builds plenty, even at the constructed or the standard non-budget, I should say. So thanks for sharing that with everyone. Anything else you want to add, or any other crazy Bravo tips before we get out of here?
Yeah, the one more thing I wanted to add, and part of the reason why even without the chess piece, there's ways to get Anathos to the 2-pitch by either paying for Dominate or whatever to get that other card in your zone. But one of the reasons I prefer the Sledge is you can disguise your pummels. A lot of times with Anathos, depending on how you're setting it up, you may not get to the +2, or if you are, it's often obvious kind of what you might be trying to accomplish that turn. But with Sledge, with a lot of blues in your deck and it costing 4, when you pitch 6, it doesn't telegraph whether you have a pummel or not, where you might see that sometimes with Anathos, you'll suspect that they have the pummel. Since you always have to typically be pitching, or you always have a reason why you could be pitching 2 blue cards to swing Sledge, I think being able to disguise your pummels, and this is why I run the full suite of them, is because it's more disguised, and so they can't always anticipate, or they have to always anticipate that you could be coming out with the pummel.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, we can't speak enough about the value of pummel in this build, right? Because what you don't see on pummel, right? You look at the blue pummel and you're like, oh, 2 for 2, but it's not. There's a hidden 2 under each pummel. Well, for Anathos, not for the Sledge, but yeah.
Right, and the other part of it is also because of these. Since we're not using a lot of the premium attacks that would be Majestics and higher that cost a little bit more, with 2 blue cards, you can pitch a Crush Confidence or play a Crush Confidence and then pummel it, where you're getting the added benefit of, if it hits, they get to discard a card. So, which is why I like a lot of these kind of cheaper attacks that you can either dominate easily or pummel them easily and get their crush effects off, and have the even if they don't crush, you're getting the pummel off where you're discarding a card out of their hand, which I think we've seen with the meta changes, getting cards out of hand is stronger than doing straight damage.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, thanks, Josh, for sharing all of that with us. Just wanted to remind everybody that if you're trying to put this together, you're looking for those last-minute singles, our friends over at Fab Foundry, they do have singles available. If you use the discount code below, we actually get a small kickback on the channel, which is pretty sweet from that. So go check them out using the affiliate link below. Josh, thanks for coming on and sharing your build. I know we'll have you back soon with your super secret spicy Rhinar build. So looking forward to that as well. But yeah, thanks folks for tuning in. Josh, thank you. If nothing else, go Commando.